This is Sean with TWA Stories, and we're going to be conducting the life story interviews of the alumni. And Greg Tyler, you're the president of the Indianapolis chapter. Greg, how are you doing? And just kind of speak to your beginnings when you got connected with TWA and where you're located currently.
Currently located in Plainfield, Indiana, just outside of Indianapolis. Second generation Transworld Airlines. Father was supervisor of aircraft maintenance San Francisco, and I started out on the ramp.
All right, so we're going to try to get a little bit of the backstory.
Lost you.
But a few that you worked with, if you could describe the gentleman and what the situation was and where it was.
Okay, as you look at that left to right is Gary Maiden. I worked with him in both San Francisco and in Kansas City in avionics. He was what they call a LST, lead service tech. And then there's me in the middle, and then there's Doug Fitzpatrick, also an avionics tech. He and I worked on L-1011s together.
All right, so when you started with TWA, obviously it's the first international airline, and they made a lot of big moves in technology and also Doppler radar and whatnot. So if you could kind of touch on some of the major things that TWA did to progress the airline industry.
Well, interesting you mentioned the Doppler radar, because TWA had come out with what they call a Category 3 instrument landing system for zero visibility. TWA did the design and the testing and development on it and got it certified so that flights going into places like SFO or JFK or London Heathrow, when it was fogged in, could still get in where nobody else had that capability.
All right, so here's a shot of the Indianapolis chapter that meets essentially over in Brownsburg. And part of the goal is for them to be able to essentially tell their stories of when they worked there so they can pass that on to their family and kids, and also have them all linked to one spot that they can hear each other. What do you think's the value of that? When we started talking, I know you wanted to bring this to them. If you could just kind of speak to the concept for a minute.
I think they'd absolutely love the idea. I know many of which are already looking forward to proceeding with this and getting their story shared. Yeah, I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and especially at this particular point in our lives where there aren't too many of us left. So yes, this is a great platform.
All right, and this is Pam. We were able to interview her when we did it. She had a little bit of technical difficulties because she had to use her phone, but she still looked great. We got to go through a lot of images of the museum. She's the executive director of the museum in Kansas City. There's the simulator. This is actually a shot in New York from the TWA hotel showing the old uniforms. And here's another shot from inside Kansas City. It looks like there's a cross-section view of a 747. And I think also this is where they have a lot of history on the walls, and they also kind of do training of the history. And you've been to the museum, and if you'd like to just kind of describe the museum a little bit, Greg, I think the local people like to know if they haven't been there.
Well, there's the main entrance, and the image you had just prior to that was actually one of the flight dispatch rooms that was used to brief the flight crews as far as weather, flight plan, route to destination, and things of that nature. And what we have going on there is actually a walk through time in the history of not only Transworld Airlines, but commercial aviation in general, and the significant contributions that TWA made to the American air travel system.
All right, so here's a shot of you, and looks like is that in a simulator? Is that, where exactly is that? What are we looking at in this shot?
That is in the simulator room at the Kansas City Museum, and that is an L-1011 wide body flight instrument cockpit that I'm working on there. And we acquired that from Delta Airlines a few years back, and they didn't have anyone that was familiar with L1011 systems. So it arrived in Kansas City and kind of sat packaged up for a while. And when I was informed of what they had, I rounded up a few people that I knew, former TWA employees, and we made a project out of it. And as you can see there in that picture, we had just finished establishing power. When it arrived, it was in complete disarray, unassembled, no instruments, no anything. And so we put it together from scratch.
That's pretty great. It's a great shot, and you look pretty proud with that smile on your face. Here's another shot here of you outside on the tarmac. What's the plane behind you, and who are the guys around you?
That the aircraft is aircraft 9408. It is a McDonnell Douglas MD-82, basically a stretch version of the DC-9. And on the left is Dennis. What's Dennis's last? Oh, Dennis Klaus. Yes. Excellent MD-82 mechanic. And on the right is Doug Bronson, specialized in hydraulic, sheet metal, and turbine engines. He knew the MD-80 pretty much inside out. That was, out of all the aircraft in the fleet, that was his pride and joy. And we acquired that aircraft, and it, as you see, is there on the ground in Kansas City. And basically, we go through all the systems, keep it airworthy, go through the generators and hydraulics and whatnot, take it out on the ramp and taxi it, and keep everything fresh and functioning properly. And it is available for display to the public.
All right. So you worked for TWA for a long time. You also were in the racing industry. That's how we originally got connected. We actually, for the past 4 months, have been interviewing over 60 people in the racing industry about their favorite memories of the Unsers. And it's been a pretty neat road. But, you know, for yourself, being with TWA and wanting to save the history of the local alum, and we're also going to be able to link it to the TWA's website in Kansas City, which I think is great. We're going to start with Indy, and I'm going to be hosting it. So just kind of give me some overview of what you really loved about working for TWA, and maybe some highlights of your career, and maybe even if you want to speak to Flight 800 and what happened there.
Well, in particular, here in Indianapolis, TWA was instrumental in the growth of Indianapolis. A lot of your manufacturing that's here, or at least was here, Delphi, Caterpillar, General Motors, Chrysler, and whatnot, was all set up through TWA. And for decades, TWA had a huge cargo division here in Indianapolis. There were 707s basically every 12 minutes coming or leaving, full of freight going either to the East Coast, West Coast, and or overseas. So yeah, TWA was huge. In fact, TWA was the only airline to operate at every major airport in the state of Indiana. Instrumental in its growth in a variety of ways, not only with the industrial corporations that I mentioned, but also as far as shipping out agriculture. So, yeah, TWA was huge here in Indianapolis. And since you had mentioned the racing thing,
Wait, go ahead.
when you mentioned the racing, TWA and motorsports have a long history together, especially connecting the 500, where you had many teams throughout the 60s, 70s, and even early 80s that were based out of Southern California that had all of their equipment transferred back and forth by way of Trans World Airlines.
Gotcha. And as far as some of the people that are here in Indianapolis, you know, that you'd like to kind of give a little bit of appreciation for their dedication to TWA, who'd be a couple people you'd want to mention?
Larry Myers, Dave Baldoff, Jan Hummer. She recently passed away. She was the previous president of the Indiana Seniors Club, which is now the Ambassadors Club. In fact, a lot of the people here in Indianapolis that I actually didn't work with, I met them, through TWA, and just the fact that we are keeping our spirit and dream alive, I think is very important, because again, the significant contributions that TWA made to the growth of Indianapolis, as far as employment and just in general, is very significant.
Well, here's another shot of the local group, and I know that you guys are trying to get together once a month. We're going to be able to do this via phone or a video call like this situation, incorporating photos. And it's going to be a way for them to be able to keep it, send it to their families and other, people that have worked with TWA, but also showcase them all together. And I know you're going to be emailing them out, so it could be like almost updated stories of the week, or every couple weeks, be able to highlight different stories so everybody can hear them. So I think I'm really looking forward to this, and it's going to be great to hear everybody's perspectives from, working with TWA, and also the travels with TWA, and kind of adventures that happen in other lands, even on the layovers with some of the flight crew. But Greg, I really appreciate your time. And is there anything else you'd like to say to the Indianapolis chapter about wanting to save their stories?
I recommend that everyone, while we have the opportunity, take advantage of what you have to offer to help preserve our history. And not only that, but like I say, for the local folks here of Indiana who don't realize the significant contributions that were done behind the scenes. It's great history. It really is. And this is an opportunity for, again, like I say, for us to share our stories, and there are some great stories to be shared. So I cannot thank you enough for providing us with this opportunity, and look forward to working with you in the future.
All right. Well, the stories and my contact information are at TWAStoriescom. That's TWAStoriescom. It's got my email and phone number there, but I'll rattle it off. It's 317-514-5321. That's 317-514-5321. And then it's SeanKirker.voicesliveon@gmail. But we'll have all that at TWAStoriescom. And Greg, I thank you for taking the time to do this, and I look forward to helping saving the stories of the TWA individuals that worked their butts off for years and have a lot of great stories to share.
Looking forward to it. Very good.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Just stay on the line.